Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Unfound Podcast channel on YouTube. I'm, of course, Unfound's host, Ed Densel. I hope everybody is having a great day. As the title suggests, this is a map analysis video for the disappearance of Jesse Farber. This is an episode that came out on September 15th of 2023. Before I get any further into this, if you find the content that Unfound provides informative, please consider supporting this podcast by hitting the join button below or going to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast or paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. Okay, going to go through the different locations mentioned in my interview with Rachel. I think that I have to, of course, we're going to go over where Jesse said he was, but we're going to look at a couple other things as well. And if you're going to be doing any of this searching around, any map analysis on your own, it's just a few things that I think that you need to know that were not mentioned in the interview. All right, so what you're looking at is Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I've never been to Tamaqua. I am from Western PA, technically kind of southwest Pennsylvania originally. And this is nowhere near there. So this is Tamaqua. And where I want to start is just to give you an idea on some things. So I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to leave it like this because I think everything's just a little easier to see. I will eventually go to the satellite picture view. So this road right in here, we talked about Jesse being with his grandparents around the time of his disappearance. They live kind of right in here. And where Jesse and Rachel worked is down here, kind of down toward the bottom right-hand part of the picture. Just so you know that. So, thinking about that, and the reason that I mentioned it in the episode is that when Rachel said that if somebody who knew Jesse saw him walking in what they call the curves, quote unquote, the curves. This is this area right here. So this road comes up and then turns to the north. And there's kind of this little wavy kind of road in here. And this is the place they call the curves right in here. And this is where Jesse was seen walking by this guy. I don't know if I ever got this person's name. We're taking for granted that it's on the day of Jesse's disappearance. Of course, you know how eyewitnesses can be. But it kind of might make sense, given that Jesse's grandparents lived down in this area, that was he walking to town, this would be the way that he was going, and somebody could have seen him walking there. And so that is where Jesse was seen, if we're to believe it was on the day of his disappearance. I'm not saying this eyewitness is necessarily lying about seeing Jesse, but we might question whether the day is correct or not. But that is that area right in here that was mentioned during the episode. So moving on, as you heard Rachel also talk about, there are two different mountains that they talk about. If you're local to Tamaqua, there's two different mountains that locals know, and one of them is referred as being associated with the high school, and another one that is associated with being with the elementary school. Well, I've diagrammed both of those for you, and you can see that one's on one side of town, one's on the other side of town. So we've got Tamaqua area high school right here, and then the elementary school up here. So kind of maybe southwest of Tamaqua, and the other one's a little northwest, if not north, of downtown Tamaqua. Tamaqua, not a very big place, not a very populated city. But you can see there's certainly, even though it's not a big area, there is certainly a difference between the two. And if you were going to be doing a search, you'd certainly want to understand, well, which mountain, which hill, which area was Jesse talking about. And if you remember in the phone call, that he originally said he was near the mountain, near the high school. Then he said he was near the one near the elementary school, and then he switched back. The middle school, he switched back and forth. Please keep that in mind, and we'll get a little deeper into that. So, and it's probably no different than where you live, that the locals just have terms for nearby areas, a mountain, a river, or something that maybe is not going to show up that labeled that way on a Google map. For example, being from Leechburg, Pennsylvania, there was a place called the Leap. There was a place called the Level, and guaranteed, unless you are from Leechburg, you'd never know what those places are. And if you go to Google Map, you're not going to find it there either. But if you're from Leechburg, you know exactly where those places were. In fact, anybody who's even not lived there in years and years and years could go exactly to either of those places very quickly. And so just as an example. So this is Tamaqua. And now I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Maybe this is maybe the time I should go to a satellite view. And you can see the Tamaqua, you can see these mountain ranges. You can see kind of the shadows there. That this is how those mountains go in that part of Pennsylvania. And you can see that Tamaqua is kind of situated between these two areas. Very common in that part of Pennsylvania. But you might get a little confused if you were to go, I'm going to do this right now. If I'm to put in Sharp Mountain, which is what we talked about in the interview, if you're going to put in Sharp Mountain, you're probably going to get a little bit of a distorted view on things. Because when you put in Sharp Mountain, Google's going to take you way outside the area. I mean, as you can see, I'm still zooming out. Way outside the area. Like an hour outside the area. Even though the locals call Sharp Mountain an area much closer to Tamaqua. So if you're going to put that in, please keep that in mind. It can be misleading. But once again, this is the difference between Google Maps and locals. Whereas what Rachel is talking about in the interview that I did with her is that Jesse, if he was telling the truth, was much closer, going back to remind all of you that this is where the high school is. This is this area over here. It's very close to town here. Not this area up here by the other school, but right in here, the mountain by back, what they say, behind in this area, behind the school, not way down an hour like southwest of Tamaqua. It's actually very close to the Tamaqua city limits, and that is where Rachel and her brother went to try to find Jesse quite quickly. Of course, they did not find him. This is also the area in which these boots and this bag were found, maybe even two bags. I'm not sure what to think of that. That'll be up to you to determine what you think about that. But I guess what I'm also saying is, given that his grandparents lived right down in this area, and then he was seen walking, if we're to believe it that day, over in this area, then if he was under the influence or having a mental health breakdown of some type, I guess maybe him wandering off into this area to the west-southwest of town is not that crazy, especially since he was familiar with that area. The problem is, given that he was talking about coyotes and bringing guns, let's just be honest, Jesse could have been anywhere. He might have thought that he was in this area and he was totally something different, somewhere else. And I'm certainly open to that idea. I don't know how caught up we can be totally in Jesse's comment. On one hand, very smart of him to call his girlfriend somebody who would certainly come to help him out. On the other, when you're talking about being chased by coyotes, I think then we start to maybe think that might not be true. So that is the map analysis for the disappearance of Jesse Farber. I should say that I also posted some pictures that Rachel sent me of cell phone information and even the cell phone records that are now available on Facebook, on the Facebook page and the Facebook group. And they will be on Unfound's website, theunfoundpodcast.com. So you can combine this video with the information that Rachel provided to come to your own conclusions. So there you go, and thank you for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to this channel, supporting Unfound in any way that you can. Thanks for watching.